You want to get high, man?
Let's stimulate your mind.
Get up, Chucky!
What have we got here? A fucking comedian.
Rojan Kim?
How does I want to talk?
That's wonderful. That's as loud as society wants you to talk to. So.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I know.
That's
I'm a
the
woman.
level. Yes, that's like, please don't raise your voice beyond -12 decibels. They're going to have a meter on you the whole time. All right, welcome to the Rojan Kimcast. It's me, Rojan Kim. Joining me today is Nicole Brending. Nicole Brending is a filmmaker. She's an artist. We went to school together at Columbia. She is also... I don't know, what other things would you call yourself beyond a filmmaker and an artist? Would you be like a agent provocateur? She is, I don't know. I mean, she's an all-around cool person. She's also staying at my place, so it's all very convenient to have her.
Yeah, so there's actually, no, what you're saying is, like, there's really nothing special about me except that, like, you, like we were here... And like you had the equipment, and like we could just like do a podcast.
That's true, but that's actually literally everybody who's on this podcast. I mean, that doesn't really. I can't get anyone
so
special.
I'm even less special than that. Yeah, okay.
No, I would say you're more special because you're not. First of all, you're not a comedian. You're not an open micer, which is the lowest bar of entry for a podcast guest. I can just go get one, and they're desperate for the attention. You know what I mean? Like you don't really need. People actually do ask me to be on this podcast, and they have no idea who I am or what it's about.
Really?
They just know that it's a podcast they could be on, and then they ask.
Like their PR people do?
No,
like
they assume I have PR people, so they're like, "Hey, can you get your people to work me into the schedule?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get my people." Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, you can sleep on my couch too.
But the other thing is that I don't even know them. Like, I have conversations with people I know. So if you don't even know who I am, like, what kind of conversation are we gonna have? You know what I mean? Like, it's just predicated on me just being like, here's this person, and let me showcase them, and that, I don't know what it is.
Wow, cool. So like, people are gonna like listen to this and like.
I mean, my aunt will. That's guaranteed.
Shit, I better like really like.
Well, it's okay. She can't really speak English. Yeah,
okay.
She can't understand.
Okay.
She just likes to fall asleep to it. She says. She likes to
that's nice.
yeah, she likes to listen to me talking to strangers, and then she falls asleep to the soothing sounds of it. So that's
that's nice.
Yeah, isn't that sweet? But I think so Nicole, you internet may have heard of her because of the controversy surrounding her film Dollhouse. Wait, Dollhouse, the Eradication of Female Subjectivity in popular cult or in
From American popular culture.
Which I just watched. I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, but there is, well, why don't you tell me a little bit about what made you make your film? Or tell me, actually, nobody here listening has any idea what we're talking about. So why don't you want to just tell us a little bit about the film first, like just in your words, what it's about, and then sort of the response?
Yeah, so it's basically a feminist puppet movie, I guess is the easiest way to talk about it. But it's a puppet animation about the life and times of a fictional child pop star named Junie Spoons, and how she, grows up in the limelight and then subsequently gets kind of dragged through the mud by the media as she gets older and becomes a slut, and has all these boyfriends and girlfriends, and becomes a train wreck essentially in society. And so it's kind of looking at, the title is Dollhouse: The Eradication of Female Subjectivity from American Popular Culture. And what I wanted to look at, because I feel like this is something, it's a satire, it's a comedy, but what I wanted to look at were was like this phenomenon of like how we just literally don't acknowledge women as like subjective people. Like we don't have a subjective experience, right? Like that's what that is when we like dismiss women all the time, or like we downplay, we minimize like their experiences and stuff. It's because we don't actually value the fact that they are subjects of their own lives, right? And so that's sort of the thesis of the film, is that that's like where misogyny is born.
Right. And first of all, for everyone to understand. This movie is like puppets. Like it's a bunch of puppets, and it's a comedy. It's obviously it's like not. First of all, if it's puppets, it's not. I don't know how serious a puppet movie you can have. I don't know if there are any serious puppet movies. Are there?
Like, Superstar is pretty. Like I find it like pretty.
Okay.
Unfunny. I don't find that movie
right.
funny at all.
Right. But then. So,
but this is more in line, I would say, with like Team America.
Right.
Like
I mean, to me, it has the tone of like outright I mean, it's obviously satirizing culture in the first place because that's clear, and then that's good. So, in the context of like how you're explaining, it's a serious thing, but you're presenting it in a completely satirical manner. You know, where it's just kind of pointing out how ridiculous we are, like, in our society, even if
absurd.
Like if you just don't even think about the political aspect or the what you were just talking about, subjectivity or whatever, it's just bonkers what you're looking at, right? It's just basically mentally unwell people celebrating other mentally unwell people. I mean, that's what it kind of is. I don't know. To me, I'm just like, this whole thing is, it's like society is essentially insane. You know what I mean? Like it's an insane look at, but they don't think they are. So you can see the rationalization that they're doing, which is also insane. You know what I mean? Which is always entertaining the rationalizations of crazy people. So I don't, for me, like when you tell me that it is a movie about that, I can see that, but sort of the experience of watching the movie to me was like, it's funny. Like the thing is actually funny. You know what I mean? Like it makes me laugh. It makes you think because of it's funny, but it's as transgressive as like South Park or essentially Team America or whatever, like you're saying. Like it's essentially on that same plane. So then the response, though, was definitely not like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the response is, what's interesting is that the response to the film is like, it's only funny when it's not talking about me.
Right.
So like, people will like pick and choose the parts that they think are funny, so long as it isn't criticizing them. Because the film literally criticizes everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like people, like it's funny, like what people will be comfortable with, and it'll be like some pretty hardcore, like shitty behavior. Like they'll be comfortable, that's like pretty disturbing, but they'll be comfortable with it so long as like they can feel like they're also criticizing that person, or like they're on the side of like criticizing it, right? And not be disturbed by it, they'll find it funny,
right? So
like the sex tape or something like that, right? Like that's funny to everyone, even though it's like, I would say in terms of like what's disturbing in the movie, that's probably one of the most disturbing scenes, if you want to think about it. Yeah. But like, nobody questions that, right? But then there's like other stuff that I find like not so not really disturbing at all, but just sort of more absurd. And like those are moments that, like, well, you're not supposed to say that about that group of people, or you're not allowed to criticize because such and such. So I don't know, it's been interesting because like there was a reviewer who actually said like this film will literally, like, there is a part in this film that will offend literally everybody, right? Yeah. And not one part offending everybody, but like everybody will find at least one of the parts offensive because it's attacking everything.
Right. And that is essentially real satire. Like it's not like satire with a point of view or an agenda. You're taking shots at everybody. You're basically ripping on everyone. Yeah, it's equal opportunity.
If you're looking at misogyny as like, like we're all a little bit racist. I think that's an Avenue Q. We're all a lot sexist, actually. I think it's like pretty fucking pervasive.
Right.
But I think some people believe that it's somebody else doing it, and that it's not a mindset, right?
Right.
So like I'm trying to demonstrate like this is a way that we think, it's a lens that we look at women through, and everybody does it. But what people don't want to admit is that like some of the things that they're supporting that don't seem to be misogynist are totally fucking misogynist.
Right. Well, first of all, do you mind holding the mic a little bit closer?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
And so basically it sounds like what you're saying is sort of like, so there's certain things people are comfortable with, and they're like, okay, this is comedy, they'll say. But as soon as the focus shifts towards maybe implicating them, in the guilt of society, then it becomes a problem.
Right.
Where
Then the movie is serious.
Then suddenly,
to them.
they're taking it very seriously now. Now it's not so
like
funny
the
anymore.
tone has changed for them,
Right.
but it literally hasn't changed
But
at
it
all.
hasn't changed at all. So it's really their own subjective experience of whatever guilt whatever it is that's going on inside them, they're projecting it now onto their movie and then onto you.
Right.
Essentially, you are now the problem.
And then I'm being attacked.
You're the problem.
Even though I'm just reflecting what I'm seeing in society, I have now become like a purveyor of like hate speech, or like I'm the one that isn't seeing what's really going on.
Right. I mean, you are literally Trump now. Now you're Trump. Now you are
Oh,
Trump.
no, I got
you
called
are
Fox
Trump.
News.
Yeah.
That was my favorite one. I was being like yelled at by people in the audience and being told that I'm like Fox News.
That's what they're saying to you.
And I was like, you sound like Fox News. I was just like, what is going on? Like, that's so insane.
You're Fox News.
Like, who says that?
Well, the same people who yell fake news.
Right.
The other side is Fox News.
Yeah. Well,
Fake
no,
news, Fox News. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this, like how, like a lot. I talk about this with my girlfriends all the time. Like, nobody wants to hear what a woman has to say about being a woman.
Right.
Ever. Mm-hmm. Right? And like what that experience is like. They want to hear like, they want to hear these fantasies of like strong women, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to like look at the complexities of like how women hate women.
Yeah.
Or
gotcha.
like, that there's like all of these like these other things that we have to overcome in order to actually, come to a place where we really respect women and like are have a self-awareness to be able to do that. So it's interesting because I think like one of the things that I find most remarkable about the criticism that I get, it's always from men.
Mm-hmm. So the men are the ones
it's
that
like
going after
almost
you.
like it's like 90% like white dudes.
Do you think they're doing it to try to like appear virtuous? Like they're sort of being
the virtual
like
signaling. Yeah, and I mean, and what's interesting is that what they're trying to claim is that like I'm somehow endangering other marginalized groups, right? That they aren't a member of, right? So they have their white male privilege, blah blah blah. But that what they're doing is they're putting me in my place for criticizing.
As they should, yes.
Yes.
That's their role.
Criticizing society's treatment of women and my perspective.
How dare you, woman?
On being a woman.
Tell us that we're treating
because it doesn't
women.
fall in line with how, I'm supposed to think about other marginalized groups or, whatever.
Right.
So that's been interesting because it's like super aggressive too. It's like these dudes are like, I mean, you can feel the hostility. I mean, it's like really palpable anger.
Wow.
Like one guy asked me where I live. Yeah, I mean, really pretty kind of creepy and scary. Like I did not feel safe at this last screening. So I've actually canceled screenings because of that.
So like really just trying to threaten and intimidate you physically, like basically scare you into because you're bad.
Yeah.
But then I wonder,
well, they're trying to silence me, and like the movie is about being silent.
Right. Well, what's interesting to me is that like somehow your puppet movie is what's out there killing people. Not the actual people killing them. That's not the issue. That's not the problem. It's this movie that it's not even like how when the hell has anybody. That's the thing. Like when has a joke or a movie or a piece of art really been the thing to kill people? It's like people are killing people.
I mean, apparently, like Batman is the most dangerous movie because somebody might dress up as the Joker and go to a movie theater and shoot people.
Right.
Right. Like,
hey, I mean, that happened. Yeah. So.
But like that's not a movie of any kind of controversy.
Well, nobody's saying let's stop Batman or let's stop, stop putting guns in movies because people are shooting up. Like no one's really arguing for any of that.
Right, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen a movie, or I haven't heard of a movie that was like, hey, let's look at, like, racism or something that, like, inspired...
Racists? Yeah, I mean...
that just, like, resulted... That movie was, like a direct cause of, like, a bunch of people, like, being slaughtered or not getting jobs or...
It's a real contemptible view of art in a way, because it's like the idea that like the same thing with like just jokes, like child molesting jokes or rape jokes or whatever, like that the jokes themselves are somehow more harmful to society than the actual acts of, because the jokes are actually commenting on a problem, right? Like we have a problem with rape, we have a problem with child rape, whatever. We have a problem in society, and you make jokes about it, but then the attack of the joke or the art made about it, it's weird. I wonder if it's like some kind of like what you were saying, the resistance to being implicated themselves in enabling our culture. You know what I mean? Like because then it makes you think like, I'm not part of the, you know, like I think for a second you go, am I part of the, no, I'm not, no, they're bad, I'm not bad, I'm good, I'd never do anything like that. It's that, you know, it's this sort of, I don't know, I wonder.
There's a lot, I mean, there's a lot to it, right? Like there's this whole idea that like words themselves are threatening, right? And like, which I find interesting, which I think is tied to it, right? So like words themselves, you know, actually hurt people or like damage things.
Right.
They're inherently like violent or whatever, which I think is interesting. There's also, I mean, you'll have to excuse me because I'm like super like not jet lagged, but I'm like kind of exhausted from this week, but so I might be a little slow. But shoot, I lost my train of thought. God damn it.
You're talking about
we're talking about like words of
words, violence. You thought it was interesting that words were getting violence?
People being implicated.
Yeah.
Right? So like, then there's also this like this idea that you know, we talk about the sort of polarization of things, right? Like where if you're either for us or against us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that people are so afraid of being the ones that are accused of racism or those kinds of things, that if you are maybe kind of blowing that up in their face and kind of saying, well, actually, yeah, you are, of course you are, that you know, maybe these men like identify as like feminists or something, right? And I basically said like, you're not a feminist.
Right.
In fact, I know a lot of women who call themselves feminists, and I question that.
Right.
Like I wonder what that means to them. So perhaps that's inciting, you know, a kind of anger and fear that's not just about, you know, shaking their identities, right, in the sense of identity that they have about being progressive or whatever, but also that they might be outed for being the bigots that they actually secretly are.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the real fear is. I think people, like, on the left are so, you know, ideologically pure in their minds that, you know, they like have to hold up this delusion for themselves because they actually can't confront the fact that they're intolerant and like they're totally like misogynist, whatever, racist, homophobic, blah blah blah.
I really am subscribing to this notion now that I've heard, like you are the very thing you accuse people of. Mm-hmm. So the people who are chomping at the bit to accuse you of being racist, misogynist, or whatever, that's actually what's inside them.
Yeah, they're projecting. It's
it's
a real fear that they have. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know. Well, okay, this brings me to an interesting point because you were saying, like, because the movie essentially, the first part of the movie, and what in the reviews I've read, the dog's on the court. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first part of the movie is like nobody has a problem with, right? Because it's about, you know, this character Junie Spoons, how she's basically an exploited child who has a shitty mom, who fucking just, you know, basically sexualized early and her life is ruined, and she's also like kind of dumb on top of that, and like, you know, like there's all this, and then it just flips where, you know, a man transitions to Junie Spoons, and then the whole story kind of becomes, I mean, that's
like
what's hilarious,
and like literally eliminates her.
Yeah,
from
that's
her
what's
own
hilarious
story.
to me is like she's totally gone from the last half of the whole movie is about this man being her, and then everything is like all these men like sort of
and
I
his
think,
subjective perspective.
Yeah,
Really,
and then
like getting into how he feels.
And literally, she's just dying. She's just on the side dying, and like nobody gives a fuck about her. The real person is all. And I think to me that's hilarious. But I can also see like from the reviews I slightly like I skimmed over, whatever. That's where the problem lies. Is right. Like they're like suddenly the movie goes from this thing we're okay with to this thing we're not okay with, and then like it becomes this thing. So I wonder, like, I mean, that to me speaks of like this inability to handle nuance, right? Like, because as long as it fit into the sort of cookie cutter mold of what was acceptable to kind of criticize, it was okay. But once you started getting outside of that line and sort of, I mean, I think what's great about it is like you're kind of like, you're looking through. It's like you're kind of looking through a looking glass, but then it starts turning around and turns into a funhouse mirror on the audience in a way. You know what I mean? And now the girl's gone. Like at first you're looking at this girl, but then literally she disappears as the whole thing kind of turns around, and you're now just kind of like dealing with a lot of the absurdity, like what you're basically saying, the removal of the subjective experience and this other thing, which is basically a bunch of dudes and everybody commenting about it, and it really feels like. It really feels like you are, well, it seems like what's happening is that the people, they're not, it's like they're not uncomfortable with the premise until you widen the premise to introduce the idea of how, like, if the whole movie was just about the girl and she just dies and then that's the whole movie, I feel like there would be no controversy in a way. You know what I mean? Like, because that's just the movie. But the fact that what you're really doing is like you're using this idea of a man who transitions to become this woman, and then literally the whole thing is about this guy, and I mean it just goes on, but like about how men are perceiving this woman and basically taking her identity and literally deconstructing it, you know, chopping it into pieces. Like I wonder, like I don't know. I guess, I mean, for me, I'm like, I get it. Like I get it on some level that if you're like a trans person and you're constantly threatened and feeling like you're looking for things that are like, you know, then that would trigger you or something, right? Like I kind of get that, but then on the other hand, I just don't understand as an artist, a person who appreciates art, who criticizes art, somebody who like is about the arts, like how you could interject this kind of, it's really like a form of Puritanism in my mind. It's like a form of like pretty much setting boundaries on what's
it's ideological.
Acceptable. Yeah,
it's a dogma.
and now that you're not this, you're that, you know. And then, but that's so dumb. It's just like, but it's art. It's like, how can you? It's like the idea that people go, you know, that's not funny and that will never be funny, but it's contradictory what you're saying, because funny is subjective. So for you to say something is not funny, that's like your subjective experience. But now you're imposing that on everybody. You want everybody.
Yeah, like the king said.
Yes, exactly.
The king said that it's no longer funny.
Right.
So the kingdom
so now
must
we're
not
all
laugh.
gonna.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's like your movie is totally similar. It's like you hit a point where it's not okay socially to say some of these things.
Right.
So instead of rectifying that and dealing with that like an adult, like dealing with the contradiction, we just categorize you as this other thing now.
Right, well, and I don't think it's a contradiction. I mean, I think what's happening is that people really don't want to hear
I see what you're saying.
of the ways in which like misogyny functions, right?
Right.
And so like because I'm just taking the thesis and like demonstrating all of these instances where like women are eliminated from like their subjective perspective, right? And like women are not even we're excluded from the conversation about defining what it means to be a woman.
Yeah.
And like the parameters of feminism. And so it's like I took it to that inevitable like extreme, because that's literally what's happening right now.
Right.
And to have somebody tell me that I'm not allowed to say that is no different than like, you know, some dude exploiting me for money by like, you know, selling a sex tape of me. I mean, it's like it's still eliminating my agency.
Right.
I mean, it's still like saying that I don't have the right to, you know, make my own destiny or like have my own views on what it means to be a woman. It's like Junie's scripted. You know, every time she gets interviewed, it's like scripted.
Right.
So it's like, this is a real Junie Spoons, and it's not. Somebody wrote the script for her, and like that's what's happening for women. That's what's happening for feminism. And that's like literally what we're being subjected to is just a new form of being told how to fall in line and behave.
Right.
And I'm saying, I am not going to do that.
Right.
And because of that, like all of these men who feel threatened by the fact that like I feel that I can say these things are doing the best that they can to silence me, which is like literally what the movie's about.
But also what's ironic is they're doing it in the name of defending women. They're like, I am defending women from you, woman.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's not about defending women, actually, right? So it's about defending a principle
right.
that we've all agreed that you can only say these things, right? This is acceptable feminist talk, right? And if you don't, we're going to enforce it by like preventing people from seeing your movie as best we can. We're going to trash it online. We're going to troll you. We're going to like send you creepy messages. We're going to show up at your screenings and sit in the front row and be super aggressive during a Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to tell all our friends about it. It's like really kind of insane. And like the level of energy that goes into like hating me for saying it, for saying these things. I mean, again, it's not most people, by the way. It's like maybe like 5%.
Right.
Most people love the film and they're like, thank you for saying these things. Like, thank you for being brave enough because like we all know we're not supposed to because we've got this fucking like fascist, whatever faction of like the left that like really feels entitled to tell people what they can and cannot say. But like those people, they're so loud. I marvel at the fact that they will defend their small-mindedness to such a degree without ever considering that they might be like the problem.
The perpetrators of the
like
thing that they're trying to fight.
Literally doing what I'm trying to expose.
Right. And the irony of them trying to silence a woman and expressing her own viewpoint about women's issues, which is, and to me, it's sort of like when you see the pictures of those, like, it's like the Senate Committee on Women's Reproductive Health, and it's all white dudes.
And so one thing that I wanted to do with the film is, like, we all know about that crap.
Yeah.
Like, that stuff's, like, been there, done that. So, like, I wanted to show, like, other ways in which women are excluded from the conversations about their own bodies and, like, our own, like, what it means to be a woman, what, blah, blah, blah. And so I took it in a direction that I thought was actually even more exemplary in some ways. Because, we didn't even vote those people into office.
Right.
So I don't know. It's been an interesting ride. Like, I have to say, I didn't set out to be, like, a politician. So, like, I find it kind of exhausting and tedious. Like, I made the film to speak for itself, and it does.
Yeah.
But, like, representing it, people have so many questions and it feels like Groundhog Day every time. I'm just like, oh my God, do I really have to do all this thinking for you? I already did a ton of thinking for you when I made this movie.
Right.
So please start doing some thinking for yourself. That's what I'm asking.
I mean, in a way, though, it feels to me like this is sort of what's going on right now with the division between, say, traditional media and new media, where like the sort of gatekeepers of traditional, so like film festivals, right, or like film programming, or even just not even network cable television, all the people that it's like almost overwhelmingly leftist, right? Like the people in those circles politically are overwhelmingly like of one side. So
it's like the nonprofits, like the
Yeah, but you're not even political. That's the whole thing. It's like you're not even coming out and being like, I'm on the other side or anything like that. You're not doing. You're just actually just challenging. You're just challenging.
I'm not conservative at all. I'm just pointing out that like
you're just challenging. You're just challenging and pointing out the actual real things. And it's hilarious that the people who are supposed to be the liberal, like freedom, expression-loving, art-loving people are actually the silencers. They're the ones
censors.
who are. There's the censors. And to me, it actually speaks to, like, I think the audience for you is out there, but it's not going to be these traditional channels. They're going to do everything they can.
Yeah, the festival circuit's like the worst.
You.
The festival circuit, I think, is just a whore to trends, honestly.
Well, do you have any plans on releasing it all, like publicly, or do you have any are you trying to kind of hold on to it to go through the traditional sort of like film festival / whatever route, or do you feel like you want to just get it out there? Or
yeah, I mean, at this point, like, I just want people to be able to see it, and I think it's better for people to actually be able to see it kind of in the privacy of their own homes.
Yeah,
in a way, so that they don't feel like unsafe, like enjoying it.
Right. Yeah, they don't want to laugh and then look around and be like, "Oh no, I laughed at that."
Am I going to be next? Like, am I going to be target now? Because like I actually like appreciated the truth in what she's saying.
And for Christ's sakes, like fucking, I remember watching Book of Mormon. And there's a whole number in there that's just all about fuck God and his mouth and his face and his pussy and his ass. Like, it's literally the song goes like that. And I remember looking around and just little old ladies and everybody just loving it. They're having the greatest time. You know what I mean? And it's just this pure blasphemy. And, you know, and like, come on, we're all able to enjoy ourselves given the content. You know what I mean? Like,
there was a time when you could be put in jail for saying that, you know?
Exactly.
Like, I mean,
you can't. Yeah, you couldn't say like on Broadway I have a song that says "fuck God" in his mouth. Like that was not gonna fly. But now it's a hit. It's a fucking hit, and people love it. And Mormons love it. You know, like because they actually recognize that there is a genuine love of Mormonism. You know, that it's not just. It's literally like exposing Mormonism to the public. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but do you think that? I mean, okay. So here's the thing about the South Park guys is that like they're guys.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And if they were girls, would it be different? I mean, probably.
I think it's very.
I think so.
I definitely get the sense that like people are more threatened.
Well, let me actually put it this way: to me, comedy in a way has gotten more prudish and conservative as time. So if you look at, to me, the kind of heyday was the early aughts, that mid-aughts, like 2005-ish, because that's when Tropic Thunder came out. And like Tropic Thunder, if you remember, it's Robert Downey Jr. playing an Australian guy playing blackface to be, you know, it's basically the last, you know, like he was in blackface, but he was also playing a white man who surgically made himself black in order to play a black, you know what I mean? There's all these layers of absurdity going on in the movie, and that was okay. That was totally fine. That's actually when Book of Mormon came out, and you were able to say, fuck God, fuck this, and fuck that, and that was totally fine, because honestly, I think it was because Bush was president, and it was the middle of when we were finding out about Abu Ghraib and all this stuff, and so comedy was just like transgressive. They were just like, we can be as fucked up as because look at what we're doing. We might as well expose it and just be fucked up as possible. But I feel like something happened post Obama and during that Obama period where you couldn't. So for instance, even with women, like I was talking to you about Sarah Silverman before, or like these women, Amy Schumer even, these women were sort of considered edgy or transgressive or whatever, you know, saying things that you weren't supposed to say as women, and they were actually celebrated. You know, they were celebrated, and that is part of what led to their meteoric rise. And then Sarah Silverman now is being canceled for doing blackface in a show she did. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know. It's like hard for me. I feel like there was a time and place where maybe people might have had a completely different response to your movie. Like if 2005, if you came out with your movie,
well, actually, no. This is what I'll say is like I said, the loudest people are actually the minority about the film.
Gotcha.
And I think that's important to remember is that most people, like I said, love the movie.
Right.
And they actually, I guess maybe what isn't being acknowledged as widely is that a lot of people are thinking what I'm saying and they're not saying it.
Right.
And we talked about maybe the tides are turning or whatever, but that like I think it's possible that we might be coming out of that like hyper like sensitive I think there's going to be, we're sort of maybe beginning the turning of the tides of the like coddled, you know, I guess it's millennials, I don't know, like this sort of this mentality of like we're gonna coddle people's minds, we're gonna I know some Republicans call it like nanny.
Oh, the nanny state or something like the
nannying stuff.
Yeah.
We have to take the guns away because people can't handle them.
Right.
You know, or like you have to wear your seat. We have to make a law about the seatbelts because people, you know, like those kinds of like Republicans like really hate that shit. But
right.
But so do like a lot of like liberals and progressives are kind of like, wait, like what do we really stand for on this side? Like we're actually going to tell people that they can't say certain things and they can't like. I think that that hypersensitivity, that inability to tolerate conflict, that inability to like understand that like words don't actually like cause like, physical harm to you, and like, your trauma isn't more important than other people's trauma, or like that trauma is somehow like a way to avoid life, and like you never have to get over it. You know, like those kinds of things. I think people are really getting tired of listening to that over and over again, and having that be what represents, you know, feminism, or, you know, any of these other issues, like, or even, you know, how it's like affecting art and like films. Like I think we see a lot of that stuff in art and films, like in the festival circuit, but that there is starting to be more of a backlash against it.
Yeah,
like
I see it.
It's like the early stages, I would say.
Yeah,
so.
I see it in comedy clubs. I'm seeing it. Like people are really resisting. People are trying to be transgressive the other way. People are really kind of resisting PC culture and kind of going against it. And also, like, I think it's, like I would say, like, I think, like you're saying, most people love your movie. I think most people have the same, if not maybe a little bit more sophisticated sensibility in terms of comedy that they did back in 2005. It's just that you have to do it in secret. Like publicly, you can't be like, I love this or I love that, because of what might have, how people judge you. So like you were saying, people might be more comfortable watching your movie privately, because nobody then will judge that, you know, and they could be free.
Like, then they can like see what happens is like then they can like sort of secretly, like they're like, I know people who are doing this. They like kind of have to suss out, like whether or not they can talk to somebody else about it. And that's unfortunate. I don't know. Like I think it's unfortunate that that's what the state is right now. But I'm hopeful.
I think it's changing.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that people are getting less, you know, uneasy about, you know, speaking their minds, or, you know, being seen as somebody, because I think the more people that speak up about like some of these things that are just like so absurd, like I can't even believe, I don't know, that they're like a part of our like, you know, collective consciousness at this point. It got to go. I mean, it's like we're in this like, remember Ebonics? Remember? I mean, it's like, you know, like there are these things that, you know, crop up, you know, periodically. It's like, no, we need this initiative to like whatever, and they're just so like tacked on. Yeah. And they aren't really about people's lives. It's about appearances. And I think we're gonna come out of this spell too eventually, and probably find something else to be delusional about. But I don't know. I'm certainly not gonna apologize for my film, and I'm certainly not gonna back down from what I made.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting, because I think it's the tide is turning, and I do wonder how that's going to affect the way people like view and take in art or consume. Because now we're consuming, you know, people are consuming more content than ever before. You know what I mean? Like now with podcasts, people are literally consuming content on the way to work and at work and this and that. And like, but one of the things I find very ironic or funny is that like you know, comedy podcasts, for instance, essentially what you have is comedy podcasts are kept alive by people who go to work. You know, that's who listens, because you have a whole 8 to 10 hours of time essentially where people are now consuming content where they didn't used to anymore, because like everybody's listening to all these podcasts at work and shit and while they drive. And one of the funny things is people, and this was me, like people are sitting in cubicles listening into their headphones of people speaking freely in a place where they can't speak freely.
Interesting.
Right? They're like, people are saying all the things they wish they could say, but you can't say it at work, because
you can't let people know that you're listening.
Oh yeah, you can't be like, I listen to these guys or whatever. You know,
I mean, how is this not a police or like not some kind of like fascist situation that we found ourselves in?
Yeah, and it's not exactly, it's not the kind of fascism everybody's saying it is.
Yeah, it's not. It's actually not really Trump.
Yeah, it's actually it's the other side, believe it or not. And I don't know. I mean, I think that I guess I feel like, first of all, Americans are very like the free speech thing is a very American thing. You know what I mean? Like the like stand-up comedy itself is very tied to the First Amendment, free speech, and the fact that you could just say fuck the president and not get killed. You know, like you could do that and that's fine. And if anything, if you do think it's fascist, how is everybody saying fuck Trump on TV and not getting killed? You know what I mean? Like if we're in such a fascist state, how can everybody be criticizing the president and not being taken to jail? You know what I mean? Like that seems to me like we still are okay with criticizing people, but like I do wonder, like I feel like the most dangerous sort of thing in society is when collectively we agree that we're on the side of good, right? Like I feel like that's when you can be like, they're the bad ones, or they're, or like that's kind of like what happens to you. Like they're like, you're the bad one.
That's the thing that's interesting is that like I'm not going out there being like I'm the right person. Like I'm saying everything that's right. I'm literally just observing society. In the film. Like I'm literally just demonstrating some instances where like we should probably be thinking a little bit harder about what we believe about women.
Right.
And I'm just asking people to think about it in a way, like I'm presenting it in a humorous way. I'm using satire, right? But like, which is potentially people could say that is my commentary, right? That I'm satirizing it. But I'm using, these instances not to like say everybody should follow me and believe what I believe. Yeah. But like let's talk about it.
I mean, totally not getting that at all. I'm not getting I didn't get anything from the movie that was like a polemic or like any kind of like.
But the response that I get, what you're saying from these folks is that, that like somehow by virtue of not agreeing with one side, I must be on the other side, and that side is bad.
Yeah, and that's really...
And we're good. Like the side that's like telling me I'm bad is the good side, and like, that they can actually say that about themselves.
Right. And that's actually just speaks to, it's actually a lack of nuance and critical thinking and actually just forced dogma. It's basically...
It's completely anti-intellectual. Yeah. No, it's really interesting how the left has become so anti-intellectual.
Like, what happened? Like, I don't understand what happened. Like, these guys are supposed to be the anti-war smart guys who, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was the traditional like liberal... is supposed to be against, the empire, against, squashing freedom of speech. We're supposed to be on the side of freedom of speech. That's what traditional liberalism was like the belief in individual liberty and rights and all that stuff. And now it's almost like now free speech is like a Republican talking. It's so weird. Like everything's so backwards where like free speech is considered a conservative talking point and it's actually code for let me be racist. Let me be misogynist and racist. Like, and I guess like that's what it's so backward. Everything is sort of kind of on its head now that it's so like, I don't know. It's weird, but like,
no, it's interesting. I mean, I also think that, that liberals have become bigger defenders of religion recently, or like that there's a kind of shift in this, like I used to think like it was more secular, right? Or like it wasn't. But I feel...
Well, do you mean like in terms of Islam, or do you mean in terms
for Muslims particularly, but in a way that's like not acknowledging how they openly criticize like Christians and sometimes Jews.
Right.
So
it's totally fine. That's fine, but don't make fun of the Muslims. Like,
Well, or
like,
don't criticize. Like, you can't say anything bad about them.
Don't be Islamophobic.
It's like, well,
yeah.
I mean,
why
like,
not?
why can't? It's not my ideology.
Not only that, we've literally been bombing them for 20. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about Islamophobia, and but we're murdering that. Like, I mean, it's completely contradictory. Where you're like, if we really cared, wouldn't we try to stop the bombing? Like, wouldn't we try to work out these wars that we have? Like, if you really care about Islam and Islamic people, and like, if you really care about them, what I literally don't see a single Democrat except for maybe Tulsi Gabbard, but like none of those 20 motherfuckers they had debating, none of them were like, hey, we should really roll back the wars that we're doing, mostly against Islamic countries. Like, the same people who would like call you Islamic phobic aren't really, I don't know, I don't see them saying anything about stopping the state from murdering.
Like a hijab or like it's always about,
It's superficial. It's always superficial.
It's always cosmetic, and it's always like, it just always feels like a way to get votes. It never feels like a real sincere effort to.
Well, honestly, I think it's like guilt. It's like liberal.
Yeah, okay,
it's like
maybe,
it's
yeah,
this
that's what it
idea
is.
that like
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we have been fighting. We've been in Muslim
But,
countries for the past 20 years, bombing them. So like, I feel like there's this weird guilt to be like, oh, you can't be Islamophobic, you know.
Well, I think
like,
they also equate Islamophobia with racism, and like
Sure.
the left, like they're so morally righteous that like they can never be deemed racist, which is like total crap. But
which is actually very racist. Like they actually are more racist in ways.
Well,
like
and actually,
in that way.
they've done studies that like if you believe you aren't racist or biased, or like if you believe that you aren't misogynist, you are
Probably
more
right. You probably are
racist
Right.
actually
Yeah,
than
yeah.
people who admit like I might be kind of racist.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I just like I watch all of this stuff and I just think, you know, I see the thing that I find most frustrating is that I see, you know, reactions on both sides to these like real like ideological whatever things going on, and no self-awareness. And so like I don't see an end to this civil war.
Right.
And that's what's like I think most frustrating, but that's why I make the film that I make, because I want to point out that like these aren't like, you can't say like the left is not racist and the right is, or that the right is such and such in the.
They are saying that, but it's
I mean,
totally
you can't, like,
it's totally illogical. But yeah.
But I'm saying like you can't like say it and have it be true.
Right.
In a way where like everybody's racist.
Literally, we are a racist. Our country was founded on racism.
Well, and like racism is a systemic issue.
Right, exactly.
It affects everyone. And so it's like, that's why I think conservatives are so like, hey, fuck you. Like, yeah, fine, I'm racist then. Fine.
Right.
You know, because like nothing I do is going to not be racist
Right.
to the left. And the fact is they're fucking racist too. So like, it's just like, why not own it then? I mean, it's like, so it sucks. Because
Right. Well, it's actually very interesting. So have you ever heard of, God damn it, I'm blanking on her name. So there's this really famous thing I saw about Frontline being a big thing. It was like right after Martin Luther King got assassinated, this teacher decided to do this like social experiment in her class where she said, okay, kids, from now on, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids are going to have to sit in the back, and the brown-eyed kids are going to sit up front. And then she basically told them, like, blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids are known to be disruptive, and they're known to talk a lot, and so we're going to keep them over there and whatever. And then what basically instantly started happening, and actually she did it with kids, and then she's doing it now with adults. Like, she tours around and kind of does it with adults. Whoever she says is the group that is, they're the ones that aren't so good, they're bad, they automatically become oppositionally defiant. They start becoming defiant. They start being like, what? Fuck you. Like, I ain't disruptive. Like, they start disrupting the class. They actually start disrupting the class. And it basically is just
and then
like...
it's like self-fulfilling or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's basically, the whole point was that, like, that's what we say about black people. This is
Right.
what we say about black people. And if you keep saying that about them, of course they're gonna be like, fuck you guys.
Right.
It's a human response when you're told that your group of people is a this or a that, to resist that, to want to resist that.
Right. So the Republicans are doing that to the left about like that, and
then the left is doing it to the right. They're
Yeah.
basically saying you're racist, so then they're like, all right, well, fuck you then. All right, fine, I am racist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And meanwhile, without even thinking, like, just the fact that you label an entire group of half the country racist is a form of bigotry. That's actually
Right.
literally a
Yeah.
form of bigotry. That's what you're doing, prejudging all of them. And if anything, it's like, the other weird thing is, like, the left is becoming, in a way, more undemocratic, where, like, I've heard people say, like, like we should get people out, we should get more people to vote. We should get more people to vote. But then if you pose the question, what if all those people you get to vote actually vote for Trump? Then they're like, no, we should stop people. Then they don't want democracy then.
Yeah.
Then they're like, let's cancel it, right? Like, because we know better.
Yeah.
So it's that's the hypocrisy, I think. It isn't just right, left. It's like, me, I consider myself like, now I'm just an independent. I feel like you got to win my vote, like, because I'm not going to just take a side just because. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be persuaded, and honestly, they're like pushing me right. They're like, if I was going to pick a team at this point, it's like you're pushing me away from the left. Like, the left is pushing me away because they seem less rational now.
Oh,
And,
yeah,
like,
I know. I'm
mean,
like, you think I sound like Fox News and you want to like, criticize me and
like, you think you're going to get my vote with that? Like,
yeah,
you are not
okay.
getting my,
peace. Yeah, I mean, I guess like I'm not I personally, I think about that, right? I'm not that reactive, I guess. Like I am. I'm very frustrated. Like I don't feel like there are any people that really represent the values that like I think we should really be striving for. We're completely missing the point all the time on both sides. So like in like, you know, my inclination, of course, as an artist and as like a woman and like whatever, is to, you know, want to have these, you know, have progressive, you know, alignments, but a lot of the time I don't see that it's progressive. Right. So then I'm like, what does that even mean anymore to be progressive when I actually see a lot of it going backwards?
Right.
So and then it just becomes about platforms and not really about progress. And like a lot of progress, if you ask me, has to do with like reaching across the aisle, hearing what conservatives have to say, looking at where we have the same values and how we can build on that versus, you know, saying we have all these differences and we're never going to agree. Right. So that I think is what being a progressive is about. But like, and I don't like, I mean, some people think that's centrist, some people think that's moderate. I actually think like if you want progress, you have to negotiate for it, and you have to consider that all people in the country are the people that you want to progress, right? Right. And that means that some people have to have more traditional lifestyles, or they have to, you know, they have different needs, but, you know, based on, like, there's just so much classism, too, on the left, I think, that is unacknowledged. You know, like, they're not really thinking about the fact that, like, you know, some people, you know, they're, you know, they live on farms, they live in the middle of nowhere, they have, you know, they don't have access to, like, the same kinds of things that, like, a privileged person, you know, in the city might have. And so there's a real disconnect, I think, too, just from, like, the people that they used to serve, like the labor and farm and stuff like that. And it's, I don't know, like, I just don't see how.
I think class is a huge thing. Well, I mean, just think about, like, I have this conversation all the time. Imagine you're just some poor white person in the middle of the country with fucking nothing, no jobs left, nothing, and now all of a sudden they're calling you racist. And they're calling, and you're like, what? I got nothing. I'm dying over here. Are you kidding me?
I mean, I've told you, like I have family, you know, that, like, very, like, I actually don't know for a fact, like, I don't know if they voted. I mean, I'm guessing they did. And I'm certain they voted for Trump, you know. And like, they're good people. Like, they're nice, you know, they're like trying to do a good job. They're trying to raise their families, you know, and like they're not making tons of money, you know, and but, you know, like I said, like some of them are in the military. Some, like, you know, Marine, I got a Marine, I've got, you know, actually a couple Marines, I've got Navy SEAL, I've got some law enforcement, you know, and like these are people who like they literally risk their lives for complete strangers.
For us.
Who, like, I can't think of a single liberal who would do that. Right. For anyone. Right. And they don't get paid shit. And then after they do that, you know, I'm not saying there aren't bad eggs. There's doctors who are bad eggs, you know? But like Harvey Weinstein was a liberal, you know? Like to just like point, like do this like brandishing, you know, like this sort of like, you know, all cops are racist. What's the incentive then for them to save your fucking life?
Exactly.
If you're not going to see them as an individual.
The first thing you're going to do when you're in trouble is call the cops. Like, what do you got? Yeah, I mean, you need them. you can't just say that they're.
But I think there's also this attitude that's like, well, they work for us, and it's well, you know, I mean, it's a failure to really like. I mean, I would love it if some of these people would like go out and be a cop.
Yeah, go ahead and
like
try it.
And like really see what that feels like and what that life is like. Like after a while, I mean, if all you get are calls about, you know, shitty things, your perspective on society is going to be very different.
Of course. That's all you deal with.
It's really going to shade things. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's like if the left wants people to have an understanding of certain experience, you know, life experiences of some people that are marginalized or whatever, fine. But like have... Like do that for the other people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like
It's
actually have empathy for human beings.
Like consider that you also don't know everything about everybody's experiences.
Right.
And like the conservatives have experiences too that are informing their decisions.
Right. I mean, I have frequent conversations like this where because I am not, actually don't really believe in the left-right dichotomy, honestly. I don't believe in this binary shit, and I don't believe in things like deplatforming and non-engagement or any of that. And like you were just saying, it's like you're with us or you're against us. So what you do is it's a straw man. What you're doing is you're phrasing the debate where you're like, well, there can be no centrism on racism, right? You're either a racist or you're not. How can you find a middle ground? Like, how can you compromise with racists? There can never be compromise, because you're essentially creating a moral quandary between good and evil, so that any movement toward evil is inherently evil. So everything has to come toward good, right? Like can never be any movement toward that side, because that's the evil side. So that's like corruption. Going toward that side is corruption. So like, but the thing is, engage.
It's not cited.
Exactly. I mean, that's decided by the morally superior. So.
Right.
So what the frequent argument I get into is that like, you know, people, especially usually like a New York liberal or whatever, they'll be like, well, how are we going to talk to all these racists in the middle of the country? It's a real problem, whatever. And my answer is like, you do it by you literally go and talk to them. Like there's tons of evidence of people on the ground going to talking to these people and changing their minds from like literally one meeting. Meeting one black guy can actually change a lot of these motherfuckers. Like there's, you know, I talk about this guy Daryl Davis, who's turned like 200 members of the Klan just by becoming their friends, talking to them eye to eye, and then they like, I can't do this anymore, because so really to me what that shows me is that it does work. Like if you meet in the middle, it doesn't mean compromise all around. It means that part of the issue of things like racism and all of that, it's really ignorance. Ignorance is really...
a lot of it's a lack of exposure, right? And it's a lack... I mean, because, you know, like the African-American community, for example, is only like 12% of the population. And so you can literally... Like white people make up like 75% of the population. So like you can literally live places where there are no black people.
Yeah.
And then you have all of this like fear mongering, or you have all of this, you know, there's just like the fear of the unknown or like difference or whatever that then, you know, becomes compounded by like political things like, oh, you're a racist. Like, well, we're just going to brand you as a racist or whatever. And then they're like, well, fuck you. Whatever. I'm not talking about the Klan exactly, but I think just like being exposed, like when I lived in New York, it's like you know, you're literally exposed to people from everywhere in the world all the time.
Yeah. And that has an effect,
And it like literally, like you just don't, you stop actually, it's this weird dialectic where like you know they're Russian, but it also, they're not foreign to you, right? Like it's almost like a personality, it becomes like a color of their hair or something. Like it's incidental, but it's also like integral in this way. You know, just like, you know, like you meet some Dominicans or you meet some, you know, like, and that's like a part of like, like you're Korean American, like it's integral, but it's also like totally incidental, and it doesn't interfere with whether or not we can have a conversation. It's just like we're all there together, like blah blah blah. So I think that's well,
it speaks to also like the complexity, the contradiction of like they're different but they're not different. They're like different, but they're exactly like me. You know, and to actually rectify that in your head, you have to be like, oh, they're just a person. You know, eventually you'll come to like, yeah, he's Korean, but he's also a person. You know, it's like,
I mean, like I read this poem. I forget. It's an African American poet. It's a woman, and I don't remember her name. Or I don't even know if she was a poet. I think she just wrote this poem. But she says something like, you know, it's like sort of two white people. It's like how to like interact with a black person, right? It's like instructions. And one of the things she says is, forget that I'm black. Yeah. And then the second thing she says is, never forget that I'm black. Yeah. But that's that's like how women feel. Like that's how I feel. I'm like, forget that I'm a woman. Don't ever forget that I'm a woman. Exactly. And like live in that space and like be comfortable with that, you know? And not and I think just everybody has a problem with that. But like you're saying, like, you know, if these are people who actually meet a black guy and realize, oh yeah, we actually have a lot in common, and even though he's different from us in some ways, like we actually like are still the same. You know, like he's the fact that he's black is incidental and also integral, and like the fact that I'm white is incidental and integral, and like we can all find a way. I mean, that's what politics is missing right now in general. Yeah,
the nuance. But however, I would say I actually have an intuition that people, despite the media and how they publicly speak and politics, people actually do crave this integration, and they do want it. They want it. And you know how I know? Because fucking Old Town Road has been the #1 song for fucking it's basically a gay black dude who made a country trap remix. You know what I'm saying? The amalgamation of black, white culture, gay culture, like all of it all in one. Like people want that. That's what essentially hip hop is. Like it's what rock and roll is. It's essentially all the cultures of our country mixing together and coming up with a new thing.
And
like
that's
we
what I'm
want
saying
that.
about I think the problem with like this, I think people don't want to be called racist.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
like they're like, and like calling them racist actually makes them be like, fine, I'm a racist. You know,
Yeah.
like I think there's just this, like, yes, I don't get the sense that like my family, for example, who like probably get called racist all the time, I actually don't get the sense that they never want to be around a black person or a person of color, or you know, that they wish women would just like shut up and like, you know, make food for them and like fuck them. Like I definitely think like they're vulnerable people too, and they want to be loved and love and whatever. They just like if they just feel like they're being hated on, then they're gonna hate back, I think, is what's going on.
Well, they're just human beings.
Yeah, they're human beings. But like you're saying, I think they also like just like, you know, some people feel like they're being ignored by white people. Maybe some white people feel like they're being ignored by other people.
They do.
And so they're like, well, what about us? You know, I don't know.
There's actually this documentary that's coming out. So this Pakistani American woman filmed a group of dudes going to Charlottesville for the fucking Unite the Right rally.
Mm-hmm.
So she was with them the whole time, and there's just a bunch of white dudes. Whatever. And they really mistrusted her or whatever, but eventually they kind of became buddies. They all became buddies because she was hanging with them the whole time and filming them. And when she finally got like one of the most like, I don't know, the hardcore ones to kind of like open up to her, she asked him, "Why are you talking to me now?" And he was like, "Well, the whole time when you came, I thought you were here to basically just attack us and call us racists. And like, you know, because like you're with the media. So I thought, but once I learned that you were like just cool," she said he actually started crying. He actually started crying because he's like
they're afraid and they feel threatened.
Yeah,
and like I mean, look again. It's like I don't agree with who they're targeting as the problem in their lives.
Right.
Like I think they're misguided, of course, but I also understand why they feel the way that they do, and they're also being affected, you know, by joblessness and like all of these other things. And I don't know. It's well, they're just human beings. Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. They're just people. I have a joke about like, I guarantee you, if you were to just grab and hug a white man, most of them would just break down and start crying. You know what I mean? Just hug them and hold them.
Like when I was a stripper, like
hold
you know,
them.
like you know, most of the guys that I would see when I was a stripper, I gotta go soon too.
Okay, yeah.
I gotta actually go now, but
okay, we'll wrap up. Yeah.
But yeah, like when I was a stripper, a lot of the clientele is conservative.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah.
And you know, you realize like how much they just like really need somebody to be nice to them.
Yeah.
You know, you know, they have very like, if they have, you know, they have conservative values about what it means to be a man. Like, they, you know, I think that's kind of hard on them.
Yeah. Well, a lot of prostitutes actually say like, instead of sex, a lot of guys
they just want to talk.
They just want to talk or be held, and then that's it. That's oh well. Well, on that note, no, I'm just kidding.
We've solved the world's problems.
I think just hold a white man. Just hold him. He'll be fine. He'll crumble down.
We gotta start loving white men.
Yeah, they'll be putty in your hands. Trust me, guys. All right, Nicole. So, is there a place you want people? Where can they find you, or you have a website?
I have a website.
Okay.
You guys control me. Send me hate mail.
Send her, find her. Are you on the socials that you're not on?
No,
you're not on
social media.
Can they watch your movie anywhere or no?
Not yet.
No, I can't watch the movie.
You can
either,
watch
guys.
trailers and.
Is there a trailer online?
Yeah.
All right. So is it under Dollhouse?
It's
How would
like
they find
on Vimeo on my account. You know, maybe like what people should do is like start like a list, like a petition, saying they want the film to be released, and then maybe we can convince the distributor to distribute it finally.
Yeah, it's too bad. I really do feel like if you could just get it out to the people, like bypass all this shit and just get it, the public will love it. Like the YouTube, you know, I'm talking like YouTube people, internet people, just people out there, you know, like they actually crave this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, well, so hopefully you will have an update and I can maybe tell people where to go see it or whatever. You know, maybe it'll be out there. Maybe we can get people, because I think more people should see it.
Thanks, Rojan.
No problem. So anyways, Nicole could talk forever. Definitely it was.
We probably will. We're just actually going to stop recording.
And just keep talking. I'm sure the audience, at an hour and 3 minutes, the audience found out that you used to be a stripper. So sorry for burying the lead. That she's a racist stripper who, you know, who is out to help Trump win again. So, you know, that...
I'm just kidding. I love humanity somehow.
We love people.
I'm actually just an equal opportunity hater.
Yeah, she hates everyone, as we all should. I mean, that is really the essence of humanity. So anyways, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
It's been amazing.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.